Hey guys, today we're going to be making an Apple Watch app that's going to display the weather for a certain location with the click of a button. And we're going to do this using HTTP requests to an API. Okay, so let's start off with some background information. An HTTP request is basically you asking a server, hey server, can you give me some data or some information? And the server is going to say, okay, yeah, I'll give you some information. Give me the parameters, and you can give it parameters like where you want the location for your weather to be. And you can tell that to the server, and the server is going to give you some data in a presentable format. Okay, so over here, let's go to api.openweathermap.org. And we're gonna do we're gonna look at the weather in Cupertino, California, in United States. And when I made this request HTTP request through my browser, and the server gave me this information for the weather in Cupertino. And we can see it gives other information like the coordinates, the GPS coordinates of Cupertino. And over here it says, okay, it's gonna rain, and the description, there's some light rain, and it gives you the wind speed and other information. I've actually copied this information and put it in a more presentable format over here. This is just the same information as on the web page. This is it just looks better and is easier to read for now. Okay, we can see that there are curly braces over here and curly braces at the end, which means this is a dictionary, and inside this dictionary are some elements. Weather is what we're going to want today for the purpose of this tutorial, and inside weather there's an array containing some other elements which we will use, such as whether it's raining or not, and maybe what type of rain, and other stuff like that. But basically what's happening is that we're asking a server, hey server, can you give me the weather for Cupertino? And the server is saying, yes, I'll give you the weather. And it's giving us this information. And by the way, this information is in a format called JSON, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. And that's one of the ways servers can give back information to you. Another way is XML. But recently JSON has been picking up in terms of popularity. Okay, so let's start by actually making our app. So let's go to our Xcode beta, and if you don't know how to download this, in my first tutorial I actually explained everything, and you can look at that and to get started. Alright, so let's create a new Xcode project. Let's do a single view application. I'm gonna call this HTTP request tutorial Apple Watch. Super long name, but that's fine. We're going to be doing it in Objective-C, and we're not going to be using core data, and make sure the device is iPhone. So let's hit next, save it where you want to save it, and let's hit create. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is we want to make a new target for our Apple Watch, and that's done easily by going to File, New, click on Target, go to Apple Watch, hit Watch App, and hit Next. Over here, let's keep everything as is. Language should be Objective-C, and uncheck Notification Scene, and make sure Glance Scene is also unchecked because we're not going to be working with those today. And hit Finish. Okay, so a bunch of folders popped up, and that's completely normal. Let's go to let's expand the WatchKit extension folder and the Watch App folder, and let's click on interface.storyboard. Okay, over here we see our interface for our Watch App. Let's open up the assistant editor so we can see our code side by side, and make sure this is automatic so we're looking at the right code. So what we want to do is ideally we're just going to have a text field over here, and we're going to have a button down here. And when we press the button, the text field is going to update with the type of weather in a certain location. So for now, let's start by creating a button. So in our objects tab, let's drag our button to our interface, and I'm just going to call this button update. Okay, and let's define an action method for this button. So let's control click, drag to our .m file, and I'm just going to call this update weather, and hit enter, and our action method is now created. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is let's just check if everything's working out fine. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to make a simple HTTP request to this same API openweathermap.org, and we're just going to print out all this data in the log for Xcode. So what we'll do is we'll make an NS URL request. So type in NS URL request and star. I'm just going to call this URL request equals NS URL request with URL, and this is going to be of type NS URL URL, and then URL with string. And okay, so over here we want to type in @ and then our 2 quotation marks, semicolon, and let's go back to our browser, and let's copy this link over here. So hit copy, and let's go back to Xcode and paste it there. Okay, I don't know why it's giving me. Okay, whoops. It should be NS URL. Okay. Alright. And now we want to get the response from the server, and we want to store that in another variable. So I'm going to call this NS URL response. Okay, and star response, and let's initialize this as empty for now. So nil just means it's empty. It's similar to null if you're familiar with another language. And if there's ever an error, we also want to handle that. So we're going to type in NS error and star, and I'm just going to call it error is equal to nil. Let's just keep that empty for now. And now we also want to make our NS URL response. We want to convert that into NS data. So NS data, and I'm just going to call this data is equal to NS URL connection send synchronous request. Make sure it's a synchronous request. And the request is going to have contain the URL request. The response is going to be in response, and our error is going to be and error and semicolon. Okay. And I'm going to upload this code in the description of the YouTube video. So if you're having some trouble, like some errors, you can always go to the code and actually copy and paste it over here. Okay, so we have our NS data, and what we want to do is we want to convert this data into a string. So let's define a new string, ns string, and I'm just going to call this string my data is equal to ns string alloc init with data, and I'm gonna give it data, our data variable, or data ns data, and this encoding is going to be ns ASCII2 string encoding, and that should work out. Let's stop the simulator and let's and let's also put this in the log. So ns log my data and semicolon. Okay, now let's run our simulator, and when we hit update, there we go. When we hit update, it prints out all of the data from that we got as a request from the server. So here it is, and what we're going to look for is we want to get this data over here. We want to get rain, or the main data over here, and the main data in this case is rain. So what we're going to do is we're going to parse this JSON data. Alright, usually servers, as stated before, servers will respond to you with a bunch of JSON, and it's our responsibility to parse that JSON and get what we want. So in this case, we want the data that's in main over here, and in this case it's rain. Alright, so let's just comment this out for now, and let's go underneath. Alright, so as I stated before, this data over here, this data that the server gives to us is going to be in a dictionary, and inside the dictionary are smaller arrays in the square brackets. So curly brackets mean dictionary and square brackets mean array, and this is very important to remember, so keep that in mind. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're first going to start by making a mutable dictionary in Objective-C. So what we're going to do is type in ns mutable dictionary, and I'm just going to call this all data is equal to ns JSON serialization JSON object with data and options and error. So we want to click on that. Okay, so our NS data is going to be our actual data which we got back from the server up here. So let's type in data, and our options, this is important to remember because the server is returning both a dictionary and arrays inside the dictionary. We want to do ns JSON reading mutable containers, and of course if there's an error we can store that in the error variable. So and error, and an error would occur if you mistakenly give the wrong city name or something. So here I can give you an example. If I go back to my browser and I type in some garbage like that, the server is going to say message error not found, city code 404. Okay, so let's go back to Xcode beta and let's make a new string, and let's call this string ns string current weather and we're going to initialize this as nil for now, and not have it empty. And now we're going to make an NS array. Okay, so NS array, star weather is equal to all data, which is what my dictionary is called, and for key weather. And the reason I typed in weather over here is that when we go back to our JSON file, we can see that we want the contents inside the weather element. So here's where our dictionary starts, and inside we want weather, and then inside the weather array, we want main, and then main is going to contain rain. So let's make a for loop. So we're gonna use the modified for loop for iterating over an array or a dictionary, and this is just going to be for NS dictionary. Let's erase all of this for now. Let's take this stuff out. We don't need it. For NS dictionary, and I'm going to call this the weather. In weather, that's my NS array. So I want to make current weather equal to the weather at main. Okay, so what I'm doing over here is I'm iterating over this array, and I'm making a local dictionary. Okay, and in that local dictionary, I'm storing the main data over here. This main will be stored in current weather, which I've defined up here. So when this iterates over the array, when it gets to main, it's going to store main into the current weather string. And at the bottom, all we're going to do is we're going to update our text field with what the weather is like in that particular city. So what I'm going to do up here is I'm going to go back to our .h file, and in our in our objects pane, what I want to do is I want to put in a label, and let's just expand this for now. And let's initialize this label over here, insert an outlet, and I'll just call this my label. Keep it simple, it's just a name. Go back to our .m, and I want to update that level with the current weather and a string. So that's just going to be self.mylabel.text is equal to current weather. Okay. Now when we click update, it should make the HTTP request to the server. The server will respond with some data, and that data will be in a JSON format. And what we're going to do is we're going to parse that JSON and look for the main element in the JSON data, and we're going to store the value for the main event into our current weather NS string, and we're just going to make our label equal to the current weather NS string, and it should update. So let's stop the iOS simulator and let's restart it. Let's click over here, and when we click update, it should show up as missed, which I guess is what Cupertino is like right now. And I'm sure if I look outside my window, there should be mist. Okay, and to actually prove that this is working, let's type in another city like London. London, UK. And let's copy this link over here. Let's go back to Xcode and where we've made the URL string, let's just paste it over there. Hit paste, and let's rerun this watch app. Okay, and when we click update, it should show clouds. And let's double check that. Okay, in London right now there are clouds. And if we wanted, when we did Cupertino, it showed up as mist. So it's being updated for the location that we give the HTTP request. And of course, there's so many other things you can make HTTP requests to. There's so many other APIs which you can make HTTP requests to. In this case, we used an API that provides weather data, and there's so many other things. So I really encourage you to play around with this, and possibly in just as practice, you guys can add in another label and see if you can get the description of the type of weather that's going on, and have it update when you press update. That's just something you can try out. Again, if you have any questions or comments or something you'd like to see in future videos, just leave a comment below. Give my video a like and make sure to subscribe for any future updates. Thanks for watching, and